they think GBD is like a tools that makes them, being dependent to these tools. It's not really supporting the idea of independence or autonomous learner. And the second of all, 89% of the students admit to using it to complete assigned tasks. So this is like the real things that we cannot really avoid in the very first place. 48 students even admit to using ChatGPT to complete assessment and quizzes from home. It means that they don't really use their own capability in doing this one. And the next one is like 53% of the students say they use ChatGPT to write essays, and 22% utilize GPT to outline their written works, of course. At some point, it is so okay to use GPT to help us, outlining the ideas, but in in deeper context, we cannot really rely on the use of the GPT itself because it makes us really dependent on this. And it's not really supporting the autonomous learners, of course. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we go with the definitions of the false positive itself. Ada yang tahu apa itu false positive? Anyone? Students? Bapak, Ibu? Okay, so to begin with, all right, so this is the definitions of the false positive. So false positive, we can say that it happens when the AI results look seemingly correct, fluent, confident, but sort of, in fact, it is factually or linguistically and even contextually wrong. Take a look, for example, in English learning classes. False positive may appear as first. You guys can, Bapak Ibu also can see that some of the text, let's say that we already type the prompt on the GPT, let's say, and then, the results comes out, or when we do the research, it seems like the content of the writing itself is grammatically correct. But yes, it is grammatically correct, but pragmatically, this is inappropriate. The second of all, sometimes the fluent answers with the incorrect academic content. Like maybe it sounds really good, but sometimes it's not really, content with the content that we have in the academic. And the last one, when we tried to the IELTS style essays, let's say, because, like several days ago, we have the IELTS training. So I tried to relate this one to the training that we already have previously about the IELTS, about the essays, of course. And sometimes the data that we try to use or we try to prompt to get from the GPT is fake. And or even the invented reference that they have is no DOI at all. So we cannot really depend on the GPT right now. We have to do like, if I may say, triangulations. We're going to talk about this later on my slides. Okay, the second thing is why GPT-based tools produce false positive. As we may say, ladies and gentlemen, that fluency does not equal accuracy, and it also doesn't equal the appropriacy itself. Okay, because of what? Because when we use these GPT tools, we need to consider upon several things. The first one, the GPT itself, it is only predicts language, not the truth. For example, you try to make a prompt, let's say, so the GPT will only follow the keywords that you have, but not even the truth. So you have to question one again, whether GPT already gives you the real data or not, or the real reference or not. Because in the very first place, it's just like algorithm. It cannot be, we can't rely on this 100%. The second of all, sometimes the GPT tool base is doing like overgeneralizations from the patterns, like I mentioned previously. For example, you try to have like the essay, we have the topics like can make, let's say, make questions for IELTS writing essay parts 2 or parts 2, let's say. So they will only perhaps follow the patterns of the IELTS text 2. But let's say it cannot really predict or follow the idea of, for example, I want to have like band 9 or band 8 in terms of IELTS essay. So I want to have that kind of questions or answers that can really help me to get band 8 and IELTS. And this GPT cannot really do that one for us. So we have to, once again, be careful. The third one I'm writing right here, sometimes And oftenly, GPT do hallucinated citations, ladies and gentlemen. For example, I'm doing some of two research right now. So I'm writing two research papers with my coworkers right here. And then sometimes when we got like the writing blocks over here, we try to ask to the GPT or the AI-based tools, for example. And when we think that they already give us like the answers, for example, and then we try to check the citations that they already give us, it has no DOI, ladies and gentlemen. It's really inappropriate to be used because it's like, camouflage from the GPT itself. It's not really something that we can really proud of by using the GPT. And of course, the limited understanding of local context, the curriculums, let's say the rubrics, and even the CFR levels. And okay, you guys can see I have written some of the apps on your right. So we can start with the ChatGPT. I believe that most of the teachers and also students mostly use this one. The second of all, Grammarly for paraphrasing or maybe for grammar checking, and also Quillbot. Yeah, we use this so much. I use the Quillbot as well for, paraphrasing and sometimes summarizing, and then try to find the words in custom tone. For example, I want my writing to be sound like a researcher, let's say, or I want my writings to be sounded like maybe in a poetry things, we can use the Quillbot. And for the pronunciations, to check your own speaking, we can use Elsa Speak AI and pronunciations app and also WordTune. But once again, these is only a tool. This is not something that we can rely 100% to correct our pronunciations or writings, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this. Okay, so I would love to explore more of the false positive in English learning, especially. So there are some of the common risks that we have while using the GPT. The first one is grammar checking. When sometimes we think that, I'm not really comfortable, I'm not really confident with my own grammar, and then I try to put my own writing or sentences to the GPT and ask them to check the grammar. Sometimes there is some of plausible mistakes as well on right there. So we have to once again check and recheck about the results that GPT gives us. The second of all, in terms of academic writing, most of the teachers right here, I believe you guys are doing the research writing, research paper, and especially the students as well. You guys in the third semester now, you guys are, like starting to learn about the articles, reading about the patterns, how to write the articles, so on and so forth. Or even some of you already joined the research, conducted by the lecturer itself. And somehow your writing should be content to the academic writings. And sometimes to check whether or not your writing is really acceptable in the academic writing setting, you have to detect two things. The first one is the Turnitin score. The second one is the AI detector. So for nowadays, for example, not only at UMP, but in other Muhammadiyah University, when students would like to graduate, they're not only being asked to, submit the Turnitin score of their writing thesis or the articles, but they also need to submit the AI detector score. And this is really, if I may say, it's really complicated and problematic because somehow some of the students really have a good writing sections. And when their writing is, being put on these tools, sometimes the tools can be, can get like a confusions as well, because the tools like giving the highest scores of the AI detector, but in the real fact, the student is actually doing her or his best, like not using the AI at all. So it's one of the problematic issues that maybe lecturers need to be highlight in the very first place. And then the third one is about the plagiarisms. Okay, I write here in Bahasa Indonesia, like plagiarism is not only, violating the laws, it also violates the ethics that we have, the academic ethics that we have. So once again, for the students, especially, you need to take a very good attention when your instructor, your teacher, your lecturer asks you to write. Okay, do not just write a prompt and then let GPT do it for you, because in the end of the day, first, you're doing plagiarism. Second of all, you're not going to be autonomous learner, which is really dangerous for you in the future because you can't really think, critically if you only depend on the GPT. Number 4, vocabulary explanation. Sometimes when we are, confused about the meaning of the words, let's say, we ask the GPT, we ask the Google Translate, and there are some of the results of the translations of the words. So one words can have different meaning, and it depends on the context as well. So once again, use it really carefully, wisely, and do not rely or trust the AI 100% because still it is human-made and still there are some errors on it. And the last one, pronunciations feedback. I believe that most of the students using like Duolingo, you also have like Elsa Speak AI, and sometimes you guys use right now. I'm running the research with my coworkers, Ibu Fafa, on pronunciation. So we develop and we try to use some of the tools that really help us in, determining the pronunciations error by the students, like segmental errors and phonemics, especially, and also phonetics, and also phonemics. But we see that sometimes we as a human being, even though we're not native speakers, but because we've been learning English for the last 15 years, let's say. So this tool is not really reliable. When we try to ask the tools to correct about, or let's say to assess about our respondents' pronunciations, the result is not really good. The result is not literally based on the fact or based on the, like what the respondents say. I mean, it is better to have like human-based assessments on this one, or let's say we use the tools just to support our own assessment to make sure that we have the supporting data, but not rely on this one or on these tools 100%. Because once again, for pronunciations, let's say these tools lack of acoustic feedback because they only follow the trends, follow the algorithms, and follow the patterns. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to begin with, and to continue, of course, we're going to talk about the real cases that happens in our class. Okay, I'm going to start with how the writing, HOT writing. It means like higher order thinking writing, especially for students in the university. But mostly specifically, I would love to talk or discuss about the use of the grammar checking and also the paraphrasings. I believe all of you students and also Bapak Ibu here, you already, familiar with these 5 tools that are already writing right here. First one, we have the ChatGPT. Like everybody knows GPT, right? The purpose of this GPT, for example, in terms of writing, it can be, our assistant in writing. Sometimes when we have like writing blocks, it can be the idea generations or idea generatings. And also sometimes when we confuse about the definitions on certain point, it can be like explaining us about the meaning or the real definitions on it. But the potentials of the risk are still there, ladies and gentlemen. The first one, maybe GPT can produce fluent, but factually or contextually incorrect output. Once again, don't believe it 100%. We need to take a look on the contents and also the, like the factual things inside of the result of the GPT. The second of all, Grammarly. Most students use Grammarly to check their grammar, their spelling, their writing style. Sometimes when they also confuse how to write something, they will just like type a, broken English sentences and then ask GPT and, Grammarly to find or to correct these sentences. But once again, sometimes Grammarly may suggest the students plausible but incorrect corrections. So once again, maybe for the students, instead of only asking to Grammarly or other GPT tools, you may try to approach your lecturer to ask or to check. To check whether or not your writing is good or correct or not. The third one, Quillbot. I'm using it very much because Quillbot is really helping for the researchers sometimes for paraphrasing and summarize text. But somehow, ladies and gentlemen, when we already write, let's say, one or second chapter, first chapter, second chapter, especially second chapter, when we already, build our strong literature review with our own words, and then we try to put our sentences or our writings to Quillbot, let's say, to make sure or to check the AI detector, it still have like, for example, high results of the AI use versus the human base. But in real fact, I'm myself, let's say, and my partners, we're writing this with our owns. But why still when we put this on the GPT or on the Quillbot, the result is still saying like our writing is still having high score of the AI use. So once again, it's still like problematic issues happening. The fourth one is the word tunes. So this one is for, words and also sentence revisions. And these sections, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes whether you really notice it or not, when we ask the GPT, when we ask these tools, the Quillbot, the WordTune, the Grammarly to paraphrase our writing, sometimes the power of our sentence or the idea that we have shifted, like changed. It's not really us anymore. It's not really ideas anymore. And sometimes it not really reflects what we're going to say. So once again, instead of like translating or using these tools to translate or summarize the whole points that you have in your writings, I think it would be better to use it like to help you finding only one or two difficult words. And the last one is about the research rabbit, ladies and gentlemen. So for some of the researchers, we know that research rabbits use for, journal summary and sometimes for the automatizations findings of the literature. But once again, this research rabbit is only summarized without checking the context accuracy, which is really, tricky, and it's really dangerous for the researchers if they or the researchers do not have a really strong or, like a strong capability to find the keywords. So it will be like missed or gaps in terms of the writing because the literature review maybe do not support the ideas. And real cases too, ladies and gentlemen. These cases, I took this from my own, experience because right now, as I told you previously, I'm running the research in pronunciations. Yeah. Okay, first one, we have Elsa Speak AI. So when we try to check our respondent pronunciations on Elsa Speak AI, the result is not really, satisfying because sometimes Elsa Speak AI is only like following the algorithm. It cannot really give us the real key points that we want to achieve or really suitables or content to our content. And second of all, when we try to attach the result of the respondent to ChatGPT, so the result is like the GPT only following the trends, and it doesn't have like the acoustic feedback that we really expect to have. And the last one is Genie AI. So I use it a lot in writings. Sometimes when in writing, sometimes when you write a research article, sometimes we are, having not the mental blocks, like writing blocks because of maybe exhausted and maybe lack of our, input of the articles, or it's difficult to find the exact, relatable articles to our research. So we use the AI. But once again, Jenny as well, it only tracks the keywords. The second of all, the key points are also missing. And sometimes Jenny also need a clear prompt or previous human-based writing. So it still need us to write down like the prior sentences or the prior ideas that we want to achieve in our writing. So it needs collaborations between the AI and also the researcher or the human-based writing itself. Now, why false positive are dangerous in academia? I already put 5 lists over here. The first one, overconfidence in students. Bapak, Ibu, have you ever found your students in your class that seems very, confident because, oh yeah, miss, oh yeah, mister, we already submit our essays, let's say. And then when we check, it turns out like it's all GPT based. Yeah, I believe some
Yes.
of you, yes, some of you, I believe, already got that kind of students. The second of all, ladies and gentlemen, this false positive is really dangerous for the students because it can really causes misguided self-learning. Sometimes because they think, or the students think like, oh, I have my own professor at home, so I can ask everything to GPT. So I believe that all the answers are true, are correct from the GPT. But in fact, it is not 100% true. So once again, you guys need to be careful in using the GPT because sometimes it provides like clear answer, but sometimes or somehow it can really, sometimes misguided you guys. And the third one, sometimes false positives also can lead to lecturer or instructor misjudgment. Just because someone or some of the students are, let's say, brilliant inside of the class in terms of their writing, in terms of the idea, sometimes most of the people like, oh, the student must be using the AI so much because his or her thought, her writings is really GPT based. It's really high. It's not really appropriate for the students in this level, for example. So this is really dangerous, Bapak Ibu, because it can really lead us into, like don't trust our students. It's really risky. And also academic integrity risk, of course, yeah, because it is not our own work, but this is AI work. So we can't say that, oh, this is my work. Well, in the fact that we ask GPT to do like almost 100% of the works. So it's like the idea of integrity. And the last one, the assessment validity issues, of course, yeah, we cannot really assess once again. For example, here's the case why I write these assessment validity issues, ladies and gentlemen. So Brian already write the essay, let's say, like a literature review. One of the students named Brian, let's say. And then this result is actually sent. He sent this one to his lecturer. And then within a day, this long, let's say 1,000 words essay is, like the lecturer gave it back to him. And then when we see the comment, it's really like GPT based, GPT based words. We can see like there are some of the words and also the patterns and even the symbols that are already available on the GPT are there in the essay. So yeah, once again, the assessment validity issues really happening among the lecturers itself. And now we comes into the idea of how to avoid false positive. I already have the answers for lecturers and also for the students itself. Now we're going to start with the how to use smart AI for in lecturer's role. I mean, in lecturer's POV. The first one, you guys or we, Bapak Ibu, can use AI as assistant, not assessors. Still, the idea coming from us, but we treat this AI or these tools just as our assistant, not like taking the whole parts of our, works. And the second of all, we may design AI resistant tasks. Take a look, for example, when we give the students the, the exercise for writing, for example, instead of using, instead of just asking them to give a fact, something like that, we can use the WH questions to give the students, a better elaborations or better opportunity to explore their own mind, like asking how and why. I think it would be really good. And also, we need to teach AI literacy to our students. Like, it is okay for the students to use AI, but we need to know about the prevalency of the use of the AI itself. For example, you guys can only use like 20% for the whole essay writings, for example. The Turnitin score must be like below 20%, for example, or even 15%. Or if you guys want to use these AI tools in the classroom, so you need to make sure that it is only for finding difficult words, not like, constructing or generating the whole idea of yours. And the last one, yeah, it requires justifications and reflections. Once again, as a lecturer, as a teacher, in the end of the day, in the end of the class, we need to give like reflections to students. We need to ask them whether or not they understand about the idea that we've been, bringing inside of the classroom. For example, this is the fact that really happens in Indonesia. Bapak Ibu pernah nggak kalau nanya ke students like, okay, students, do you have any questions? Jawabannya pasti no.
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 Do you understand? Jawabannya pasti yes.
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 Yeah, okay. And then when we go out of the class, we ask the students, tadi belajar apa ya? Studentsnya kira-kira bisa jawab nggak, Bu?
Silence.
Silent. Sometimes in the first 2 minutes, let's say, in the first 2 minutes, they were like thinking, like rolling their eyes and tadi sih apa ya? Oh iya, Miss. Okay. So at first, we cannot blame the students because based on the research, sometimes it is really true. Karena kalau kita lihat di grafik, based on the chart that we have, so Professor Stella told me like ada sebuah grafik, jadi kalau seorang siswa atau anak-anak gitu ya habis belajar di dalam kelas, and then setelah selesai kelasnya aja kita tanyain tadi belajar apa ya, sometimes they forget. And this natural, this is like, kayak natural ways of brains karena mereka udah processing and now they're like moving and then some part of the brain they feel like exhausted, let's say. We cannot really push them to always 100% alert about the idea of the things that they learn inside of the class. So maybe for the first 2 minutes, they're like rolling their eyes and say, apa ya tadi ya? That's really okay. But the next up, when we talk about the higher university students, they should not be doing these kind of things. Like they shouldn't be, like forgetting the whole things that they've learned inside of the class. So once again, in terms of reflections, maybe we can have like, kalau kata bapak kita ya, ada mindful, meaningful, kemudian satu lagi Miss, joyful learning. Yeah, so to make sure that our students can have, like we can give our students best reflections they ever had. One rules, Bapak Ibu, ask the students why. Always why, not just what. Why and how. I think it's really better for them because they will have like space to think it, deeply and can elaborate. And now, I also have still problematic issues among the lecturer, ladies and gentlemen. First, saya nulis paling atas nih, suspicious. Kita kadang-kadang curiga nggak Bapak Ibu kalau ngelihat hasil writing mahasiswa kita atau hasil diskusinya, kok kayaknya keren banget ya, kok kayaknya nggak mungkin banget sih hal ini keluar dari mulut kalian, for example. Pernah nggak Bapak Ibu? Jujur aja nih. Pernah nggak?
Yes.
Ya, pernah ya. Because sometimes, not sometimes ya, sometimes aku juga, aku banget nggak tuh. Saya juga pernah berpikir kayak, wow, your writing is really good. I mean, in 15 minutes, saya pernah. So, salah satu kelas saya, one of my class, it is in intermediate level. I give them challenge. Like, we have 15 minutes and you have to write based on the topic. Kalau nggak salah, waktu itu kita pas lagi bahas di unit 2. Jadi saya bikin itu kayak debate-debate gitu. Kalau debate oralnya, kemudian di writing saya bikin challenge 15 minutes they have to write. But it turns out Bapak Ibu, even though they already, put their gadgets, their laptop, iPad on the pocket, let's say.